G'day Phil, how are you?
Good, Tom.
You said you wanted me to have a look at your Lucerne paddock. Is this the paddock you had in mind, and what were you concerned about?
Tom, I just want to maximise the growth and make sure I'm doing everything right for the health of the Lucerne stand.
So are you cutting for hay or grazing?
We've cut silage, and I would have liked to cut hay, but looks like it'd be grazing from here on in.
There's no reason why this paddock shouldn't support fodder conservation. The stand looks to be well established and over 12 months old and should support that approach. I guess an important thing to focus on is making sure your cut intervals or rotational grazing intervals are maintained, and that will aid the persistence of the variety over time. What time of year were you looking to cut for hay or silage?
I'm not sure, Tom. I just want to do what's best for the Lucerne.
Well, my recommendation is that you cut in spring, early summer. The main reason for that is that a dryland situation, you've got adequate moisture at that time of year, and it allows you to cut at the right period, which is the 10% flower or budding stage. 10% flowering is a good compromise between yield and quality, and it actually replenishes root reserves of the plant and sets it up for the next grazing or cutting. The other important thing, I guess, to point out is that Lucerne requires a rest period in autumn, and that's a critical time for it. That's when the plant's actually putting all its reserves or water-soluble carbohydrates back into its roots, and that'll aid survival in going through winter. The recommendation is allowing at least 40 days or the plant to fully flower in autumn to get persistence.
So, Tom, what's the best height to cut the Lucerne at?
It's important that you don't cut the Lucerne too low. When I mentioned before about budding, it's when the plants reshoot from the base. And so if you go in and cut below those buds, what you'll do is effectively impact the regrowth potential of the plant.
Well, yes, Tom, that makes sense. Is there anything else I should do after cutting?
It's really important to maintain adequate soil fertility post-cutting. Cutting for hay or silage effectively removes large amounts of nutrient that need to be replaced. I suggest that we take soil tests or tissue tests to monitor soil fertility over time, and a good recommendation is to apply a mix of muriate of potash or single superphosphate after each cut, and that will replace potassium, phosphorus and sulphur, which is removed in large quantities through hay production.
One last thing, Tom, I'm thinking about establishing another Lucerne stand. What's the best thing to do prior?
There's probably three things that you need to consider. First, Lucerne is very slow to establish, so in the years leading into establishment, weed control is really important, and that should be considered kind of 2 to 3 years out. Secondly, consider soil acidity and soil fertility. Soil acidity is an issue with Lucerne. It's very susceptible to soil acidity. So make sure that your soil pH is above 5.2 in calcium chloride and exchangeable aluminium levels are below 5%. I suggest applying lime 2 to 3 years before Lucerne to allow it to fully react. And thirdly, it's important to monitor insect pests both leading up to the Lucerne stand and then early in the crop stages. Now these are critical in the establishment stage. Insect pests such as aphids, weevils, red-legged earth mite and Lucerne flea can cause a lot of damage and need to be considered.
Tom, what would be the best variety to use for grazing and fodder?
Given your situation that you just mentioned there, Sardi 7 Series 2 is a good all-round variety suited to both grazing and hay production, and it's Australian bred, and through trials with the MLA has shown to have relatively good tolerance to soil acidity, which mentioned before is an issue with Lucerne.
Thanks, Tom. Let's go for it.
All right, mate.
Grow with confidence. Insist on the yellow bag.
Barenbrug. Our seeds available at all quality outlets.